Is artificial intelligence going to change the world of real estate? Let's find out on today's special episode.
Today's episode is brought to you by the bestseller ChatGPT Profits. This book is the missing instruction manual to get you up and running with ChatGPT in a matter of minutes. As a special gift, you can get it absolutely free at artificialintelligencepod.com/gift or at the link right below this episode. Make sure to grab your copy before it goes back up to full price. Are you tired of dealing with your boss? Do you feel underpaid and underappreciated? If you want to make it online, fire your boss, and start living your retirement dreams now, then you come to the right place. Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast Show, where you will learn how to use artificial intelligence to open new revenue streams and make money while you sleep. Presented live from a tropical island in the South Pacific by best-selling author Jonathan Green. Now, here's your host.
Now, Betsy, I'm so glad to have you here as an absolute expert in the real estate space, because a lot of people are really wondering which sectors AI is going to affect and which it isn't. And what I'm really excited about, I'm really passionate about art and design and some of the cool things we talked about last week. It's so amazing now that you can have AI stage a house to look how you like. Because I watch a lot of real estate videos where people have misstaged houses. That's one of my favorite things. They've made all the rooms seem unuseful.
Yeah.
I always use rooms different than other people will. Like, we all have our different use case. So I'm always fascinated by that. So I would love to start there and just where you see real estate going, and is the real estate market going to be dramatically changed by artificial intelligence, or is it going to be small changes?
Interesting. I think it's a very ripe industry for AI and automation with the virtual reality things. We were talking last week about builders in particular. I think when you have a new customer coming in and trying to visualize walking through a plan and a model that hasn't been built yet, that's a wonderful use of that. Changing out, and we're seeing that already just on social, but changing out different rooms, like you said, envisioning different uses of spaces. So I think that's great. What I'm more personally interested in is, as a broker, how do I incorporate AI into my systems and processes to streamline my expenses and overhead and resources? And where I think there could be great potential, and why I reached out to you in particular, was trying to get these processes, taking from the listing to the closing. There's so many different steps in that process, getting it from paperwork to the MLS, feeding to all the websites, feeding to social media, doing all of that automatically would just be so interesting to me. So that's where I see that in terms of the systems and processes side, but also on the graphic design side, absolutely.
I think you brought up two things which are very interesting. Is that I remember, like, when I was looking at renting an apartment in my early 20s, they let us walk through a demo apartment. And I was like, I can't afford this furniture.
Yeah.
I wish that this seems amazing. Or often it's staged for, like, I have a very unique situation. I have 5 children. So very rarely is a house set up the way we want. This house, when we saw it, one of the bedrooms had 4 bunk beds as built-ins. And I was like, that's perfect for our family. But most families, it's not the right thing.
Right.
So it's just happened to match what we're looking for. And it's very interesting to see that AI can let us envision things. One of the things I did want to ask you about is, do people ever put on virtual reality goggles and actually do a 3D tour? Like, I just
There
couldn't
are,
imagine.
yeah, like we're not seeing that yet, at least in our market for resale home. I know there are some markets like in Miami where you can do that, and you go into a build center and you're looking at that, but we don't have that locally. What I do think, not only in terms of envisioning like bunk beds and things like that, but especially for a builder where the list of upgrades is tremendous. And sometimes it's hard to visualize what it's going to look like in your space. And so to be able to show the customized features of this is their wish list and this is how it actually looks in your home, but it's not actually built, that's a tremendous value and a win-win for everybody, because they can visualize it. You're going to sell more product that way.
So I think you just brought up something that's so brilliant. One of the things that I deal with in the past, I've done a lot of ghostwriting projects, is you'll write the rough draft and someone goes, now that I've read it, I realize I want something completely different. And I know that so many builders, I remember I heard a story of someone who was like a germaphobe, and they go, I want a prison toilet because those are germ proof. I don't know why they thought that. They wanted a metal prison toilet. And then those are they're hard to get because they're not on the market. Like, you just don't normally see them at the hardware store. So they put one in, and then he looks at it and he goes, where's the toilet seat? And they go, you don't get one of those in jail. That's part of the package.
Yeah.
Is that, and massive amount of money goes, realize I don't want to rip it out. And I imagine that. Because one of the things I'm always fascinated by, where I live, everybody builds their dream home and then sells it a year and then wants to sell it a year later. And that's how we
Mhm.
got this house. Like, and I'm always fascinated by this. It's something I grew up around a lot. And like people would spend 3 years building a house, so much effort, like a massive amount
Yeah.
of stress, and then they sell it
Yeah.
within 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's
We see that all the
because,
time.
yeah, it's what if you, I wonder how much of that is, it's not what you thought it was going to be. Like it looked like one thing in your head.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for a person who's not trained in blueprints. One of
Mhm.
my brother-in-laws is an architect, and oh boy, right? Like I looked at his plans before, I go, I don't know what any of this means. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there's this huge issue where people can't envision it. And just imagining how frustrating it would be as a builder where a person tells you what they want and then you build it and they look at it and go, this isn't what I wanted at all. And I don't want to pay
Mhm.
for it. Or now you have
Mm.
friction, creates
Yeah.
problems. So if you can, I think that's a very clever use. I really like that, where it solves that particular problem and allows people to see something before it's built and figure out, do I really want that feature? Because so so many times we think we're going to do things that we're
Mm.
going to do. Like there's a room here that's meant to be an office in this house, but it's too small. So they didn't measure. So if you're sitting in a rolling chair, you can't back up enough from the desk to stand up, like, which is a really big problem. And it's not connected to any of the rooms that have air conditioning. So it's so hot.
Yeah.
It's where we live on the equator, it gets crazy hot. So
Yeah.
there were like these two small, which means it's a storage room.
Yeah.
Long story short, the office is just a storage room.
Mhm.
When he goes in there, it's so hot. And it's exactly these little mistakes that, yeah, if you actually put in a chair and moved it around, maybe you would have caught that. So I think that I really
Yeah.
like what you're talking about there. And then earlier you mentioned the automation thing. And this is actually something other people brought up to me, is that the buying and selling house process is really long. And I know that a couple of companies tried to solve it with send us a picture and your address and we'll make you an instant offer, send you checks same day. And those two
Mhm.
companies did not go well for them. Their algorithm got the numbers wrong because there's the human element, which is that sometimes people don't want a house for what you think it's like. Guessing of the price sometimes goes wrong. That's why sometimes a house on the market for a week and sometimes it's 2 years. Like I
Mhm.
saw, like it took 14 years, I think, to sell one of Michael Jordan's houses. And it's because everything was shaped like a basketball. Like you have to really want basketball out, which is not a lot of people. That's that kind of thing where you over personalize, trying to shorten that path. I think doing it all in one step seems to have not worked. But I really like what you brought up about shortening the process, because we certainly have all these different things that were invented 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago that don't really talk to each other very well. And that's one of the
Mhm.
biggest problems we're seeing in tech, is that I have an email here, I have a answering machine message there. How do I get those on the same place? It's really amazing that it hasn't been solved yet. So I love that you brought that up. And I think that one of the challenges in your industry, and we're seeing this in a lot of other industries, is just data organization. How can we simplify the things? Because I want to be on the phones or showing listings and
Right.
closing deals. I don't want to be moving files from A to B. And I feel exactly the same way. So I love that you brought that up, because I think a lot of people, one of the things I noticed in 2008, everyone I knew who lost their job got into real estate. They became a real estate agent or a real estate broker. And this is when I was living in Nashville. In 2020, everyone became a coach. So it was a different shift, but I saw all these people get into real estate, and everyone thinks that real estate is just showing houses, but
Mm.
so much of it is client acquisition
Yeah.
and then like handling ruffled feathers. There's so much of and it's the husband likes the house, the wife doesn't. There's always those things, right? And it's like, that's the part that you need your time on, not the part where you're filling in forms and moving data from here to here. So the more you can spend doing the thing that generates revenue and the less time you can spend on just the data entry and data organization, the faster your business can grow.
And a lot of people, especially the larger teams and companies, have moved to recognizing those non-revenue producing activities and moving those offshore to VAs. And that's been a cost-effective way to get the costs down. But I think using pure automation is even better. We could figure that out.
Yeah, I think that you're exactly right, which is that it's a stair-step solution. There was a invention in, I think, the 1800s of a master chess machine, a robot that could win any chess game. And so it was the first like AI, and it turned
Mhm.
out it was under the
Oh,
chessboard playing the game with the man hid inside. And we've seen companies even do that in the last few years, where they
mhm.
say it was AI, but actually they're just sending all the information to VAs. And that is a stair-step solution. But one of the challenges and the important things, and this is something that I was talking about to some of my other developer friends, is that he's working on a project where with a very large company and taking their phone call data and moving it around. And I said, how are you stripping out the personal information. I said, are you stripping it out before it touches you? Because you don't want someone to send you a bunch of phone calls with credit cards in them.
Yeah.
Because now
Yeah.
if something goes wrong, you're blamable. Like you never want it to be blamed. And that's like really important. So one of the challenges with moving data offshore is that now all your information's traveling around. So the more you can keep it in house, you have a higher level of security. So I think that's one of the things that people are starting to notice, because I know people who didn't realize how much control of their business they'd actually passed on to someone else. So very much, I think that is the future, and controlling things with automation allows you to be able to be in charge of everything, which is the most important thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So are you seeing a difference in between like residential real estate and commercial real estate, how they're changing their approaches to marketing? As we're seeing a big shift where a lot of people are doing work from home, which means more and more offices are becoming empty. And so that market is going through a different shift. It also means more people want to be at home. So more people want to be in a better house. I'm wondering if we're
Mhm.
seeing a shift from commercial to residential real estate and how that's affecting your approaches to technology.
I don't feel like we are not a commercial brokerage. We do commercial work, but I know a lot of commercial agents and brokers, and I don't feel that they are their systems and processes and how they're interacting with their customers and doing their business is different than the residential agent. I think I think it's all following the same path. We're all, in the US, pretty much agents are 1099 independent contractors. Even before COVID, a lot of agents never came to the office, but it absolutely was exponential after COVID, because those that did come to the office realized they didn't need to come to the office unless they needed socialization or they work better in a structured environment, which a lot of people don't get into real estate if that's what they need, because you need to be very disciplined and self-directed to be successful. I think both across the commercial space and the residential, we're seeing fewer and fewer agents in the office on a regular basis, which really impacts culture more than anything, to be honest with you. It's hard to create this wonderful family culture that's something that's always been important to me when you don't see most people most of the time. So that's been our biggest challenge with regards to that. We are seeing, just in terms of real estate since COVID, obviously the need for, and even it's progressed since then, because what we found in Florida, and I don't know if this is true in other parts of the country, but a lot of people got used to homeschooling in Florida. And Florida was already a big homeschooling state, but it just seemed like COVID really made that growth exponential as well. And a lot of people, it seems, and I don't know what the exact numbers are, but it seems like more and more families are homeschooling. They like the travel lifestyle. They like the flexibility and freedom of that. They like the control of what their children are being taught and the safety of their environment versus a school environment. So we're seeing more and more demand for rooms for classroom setouts, 3, 4 kids have workstations in one room, which that prior to COVID, no one ever was asking us for that. So that's been interesting. And then also the surge in increased ancillary dwelling units, mother-in-law suites, tiny homes in the backyard, some kind of structure that's not directly attached to the home for that kind of space, for somebody that needs to work from home now, or an aging in-law. So that's been something that's relatively new as well over the last several years.
It's really interesting. We homeschooled for a while, and we had the exact same thing until my kids were like, we want to go to school.
Yeah.
So they wanted the socialization aspect. They wanted to get out and have more adventures. And I was like, oh, I'm going to miss you guys, but
Oh,
got to let them escape the nest sometimes. But I think that it's very interesting. We're seeing some cultural shifts, which then affect all sorts of things we never would have thought about. Because when I started working from home and working for myself, running my own business, there was this perception of, oh, he just doesn't have a job. Things just aren't working out for him. And I was like,
yeah.
no, I'm doing good. I just
Yeah.
work from home or I work at the office. And I love that you brought up the structured thing, because there's a big challenge right now of working from offices, working from shared spaces. And what I found is being in the work remotely space for a long time is that some people need to be around other people. So they'll go to like co-working spaces and they like to be around other people. And I had one friend who would always work from a bar like all day, and he was sitting on a stool. And I was like, how can you, the most uncomfortable of all chairs is the three-legged. And I tried it them one time. I was like, this is a nightmare. This is the worst thing I've ever tried. And I can't work in a cafe. I work from home. I can't really do the cafe thing.
Yeah.
The socialization thing is just a distraction from me, but other people have discovered, you're right, they work in different ways. And that is one of the cool things. But also, there is, as we talked about last week, there is this need to be able to self-motivate. And your industry has obviously for a long time forced that, as in, if you don't go and find clients, you're not going to get any clients. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't, it's not like a job where you get paid whether or not you succeed. And I
Mhm.
think that makes a lot of sense to why for your industry, for people that have already had that element, they can succeed at work from home. Whereas I found a lot of people can't maintain it because there's so many distractions. I have
Mhm.
constant distractions at home.
Mhm. Oh, with
All of
5
my
kids.
kids,
Yeah, that's it.
they're asleep right now. That's the only reason there's no one interrupting. Normally my son is in here playing Fortnite. He just didn't get off because we're doing some recordings, but
Mhm.
that's the pro and the con, which is that you have more things you can do. You're at home, but also you still have to maintain your schedule. And I think we're especially seeing a revolution where people are starting to say, I can work from home and use AI to maintain things and get my tasks done. And we're seeing
Mhm.
some shifts in the market, which are very interesting. And yeah, I do think that actually, because of the way your market operates, that people have already had to be self-sufficient. Figuring out how much we can do from home and what is the value of socialization is one of the challenges we're going through, because yeah, looking at a house with a person there, like, I just can't imagine doing it without the person there. Like, the human to human connection is really important for a lot of these processes. So I think that I think we're going to see, from me, my perspective is that we're going to see a future where the things we don't need to do that we've been doing that are repetitive will get pushed to AI so we can spend more time with our families, more time face to face, more time. I think we're actually going to see a shift towards less social media, not more. That's what
Mhm.
I'm hoping. That's the future I
Mhm.
hope for. But maybe everyone will start wearing AI glasses and it will just get way worse.
We have here in Florida, we have keyless entry. So they didn't get rid of the agent. They got rid of the agent, not the customer. So the customer sometimes goes into the home, but doesn't have the agent with them. And I thought that's interesting to me. How do you sell your value if you're letting the customer walk through the home without it?
Have you? Yeah, I would think that would lead to a lower success rate,
Yeah.
because part of, so I watch someone on YouTube who shows these amazing houses, and he can make any house. Like, he's so good at making every house seem amazing. And then I watch someone else who does reviews and it's just, here's all the flaws he didn't show you. Like, one of them was like next to a nuclear reactor. Another one was next to a train. Train. So you know why the house has been on the market for 5 years, right? Like, suddenly there's the missing piece. And there is something about the presentation and telling a story,
Yeah.
because you're looking at a house, you're really imagining, oh, this will be the kids' room. This is where we'll do that. And if you don't have someone there who's driving the story, I would think that the conversion rate would go way down.
Yeah. And you
It
don't
was
build
so much.
real estate's a relationship business. So you're not building the relationship.
Yeah. My parents, once they found a real estate agent, when they bought the house, when we moved to Tennessee, that's who they always used. And when they got divorced, they both used her separately to get their new houses. Like, you have a longevity that I think is really important. I love that you brought that up. So yeah, I think that very interesting to see that the future of real estate, the part that matters, the human to human connection, that's not what's replaceable with the moving data around and maybe showing some cool pictures. I just, again, like, I can't imagine that many people are putting on VR glasses. I've never used them. I don't know anyone who's using them now. Like, everyone I know has VR. They're just dusty. I've never seen them. So I think that it's so hard to get the same experience until you're actually there. So
Mm.
like, and also there's always, like, when we looked at this house, there was such a gap between the pictures and the reality. The pictures were clearly 10 years old.
Oh,
Like, they were fully 10 years ago. And I was like, guys, this is not the same house.
yeah.
And of course that helped us to negotiate very strongly, but it's same challenge with the VR. It's not real. So it's good for a mock-up, which I think is,
Mhm.
you always want to see it and see what the wood looks like and see what it smells like to actually know. So I think the human thing is really good. So for people that are earlier on and thinking about getting into the real estate game, especially people in their early 20s, everyone wants to have an easy success business. What is the biggest advice you would give people that are thinking about entering this sector? What's the kind of biggest mistakes people make that kind of causes
Mhm.
them to crash and burn? And what are the things that really help people to succeed in this world?
Think, and we actually run a real estate school. So we see a lot of people who come into real estate, into the profession, and we see a lot of people exit. 80% of agents are no longer in business after 2 years of getting their license. And sadly, I think the industry does us a disservice because the bar to get a license and sell real estate is quite low in the United States. In Florida, you take a class, you can get the class done in a couple of days online, or you can take it a week in person. you pass a test by the state and then you're licensed. And then I think because it's so easy and inexpensive to do that, a lot of people assume it must be easy and inexpensive to make a living. And that's just not the case. Your phone does not start ringing the day you get licensed. And in fact, you mentioned your parents were so loyal to their realtor. My parents were loyal to their realtor. They hadn't bought a house with her in 40 years. And they clearly told me they were using her, not me, when I got my license. That's how loyal people are. So even the people that you think you might be able to count on when you get your license don't use you. So you really have to want it. You have to have a nest egg. A lot of people, they really come in with maybe 1 to 3 months of living expenses in the bank account. You can't do that. We tell people minimum, you need 6 months, or you're living with somebody who's supporting you. But if you don't have at least 6 months built up, you are going to feel very stressed. It's going to be very uncomfortable, and you most likely aren't going to make it. You're going to have to go get another job, and usually fast income, it's just the allure is too strong, and they end up going back, and we've lost agents to going back to waitressing. Just not incredibly high paying jobs, but the money's there on a daily basis, and they are used to that, and they're not used to having and living paycheck or not paycheck, commission check by commission check. So just really understanding what that lifestyle is. And then I think the second component is being incredibly disciplined to the practices. This is, to me, it's one of the simplest professions to be successful at. There is a formula. You work the formula. It's a numbers game. You understand what your numbers are. And if you don't have your own numbers, use your broker's numbers, use the national numbers. It all comes down to how many conversations you're having with people about real estate every day. And if you're willing to have those conversations, your numbers will come, and the income will follow there. But a lot of people, I think, try to get it to be complicated, have limiting mindsets on, oh, I can't do this. I can't ask that. I don't want to door knock. I don't want to cold call. You got to get over that fear and rejections every day. To me, it's just one step closer to the yes. I don't care that it's a no, or it's never a no. It's no, not today. So reframing some of those things that people may find uncomfortable, but really understanding what the job entails. I think the smartest people, and they call us and they ask us to shadow. Can I shadow an agent for a week? Absolutely. We would love that, because you're going to really understand what it's like to be an agent. It's not, I think sometimes some of those television shows do the profession an injustice too, because it's just not all fun and looking at beautiful homes. Looking at homes gets quite old after a couple of months, and most people don't live in the homes that you're seeing on television. It's not nearly as glamorous or as interesting. And it's also I always tell people, houses sell themselves. We're not selling houses. We're selling people on us to use us when they decide to buy a house. But you would never want to sell somebody a house that they didn't want, or it was over their budget, or they don't even know if they're going to be here next year. So you're not trying to talk someone into buying a house. You're just trying to gain their trust so that when they are ready to buy, or when they know someone that's ready to buy, they will think of you.
I think that's a really good lesson. I think that what we're seeing, and that's why I'm so excited to have you on today, is that while parts of every industry are going to be affected by AI, the human to human connection, the personal relationships, which is so much a part of business. Like when I started working online, I was like, I never have to talk to another person again. 90 to 99% of my business is handshake or relationship based. It's so often chat or conversation, meeting in a conference or meeting by happenstance. And very rarely is it like all computers in the middle, right? Because it's so much relationship based. It was really a surprise for me. And I think that's a really important lesson, that while AI is really cool and it does a lot of great things, as AI podcast, of course, I'm a huge proponent of AI, but mostly AI is not here to replace us. It's here to help us to do the things that are not the best uses of our time, and let us get back to exactly doing the things that are the best revenue generators, whether it's showing more houses, doing more calls, or spending more time with your family. So I think this was amazing. Thank you so much for being here on today's episode. Betsy, this is an amazing episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Where can people see what you're doing, especially if they're in Florida, or they're just thinking about how your massive success growing an agency and kind of all the cool things you're doing and how you're running a real estate tool? You're doing so many amazing things.
Sure. So I have a website, my name, betsypepine.com. And there you can click and get my free newsletter. You can order. I just released a book last month. You can get the book there and a variety of other things and learn more about me and my companies from there. And then I'm on all the social handles at Betsy Pepine.
We'll link to everything below the video and in the show notes to make sure you guys can see this. This is so amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And everyone, thanks for listening. This has been another amazing episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Starting with AI can be scary. ChatGPT Profits is not only a bestseller, but also the missing instruction manual to make mastering ChatGPT a breeze. Bypass the hard stuff and get straight to success with ChatGPT Profits. As always, I would love for you to support the show by paying full price on Amazon. We can get it absolutely free for a limited time at artificialintelligencepod.com/gift. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next Monday with more tips and tactics on how to leverage AI to escape that rat race. Head over to artificialintelligencepod.com now to see past episodes, leave a review, and check out all of our socials.